I didn't start growing until we niche down. Niche. We narrowed down our offering. We tell all young entrepreneurs and small businesses to pick a niche. And it's a horrible, pernicious lie, because it's like saying drill for oil. And then they say where? And we're like, pick anywhere, right? Like, because when you pick a niche arbitrarily, there's no way to know it's going to be successful. So I call it the hourglass of niching. And the hourglass of niching, if you think about an hourglass starts broad, tapers, and then when you get to the center of the hourglass, that's the most efficient facet of the niche.
After running an agency for over a decade, I've had the pleasure of becoming friends and being in circles with some of the best educators and generous people in the space. This podcast is designed to bring to you what is working today, put it all in one place, absolutely free, where there is nothing off limits, and you get to hear straight from the folks that are doing it day in, day out. This is going to be a good show, so welcome to Agency Launch. Welcome back. I am super excited because I am joined by Qasim Aslam, and you guys may recognize Qasim because his name rhymes with awesome, but also Qasim, you probably heard him speak on a number of stages, including, well, some actual events that no longer exist, but some of the biggest stages. He built and sold the #1 rated or ranked Google Ads agency in the world. They had huge, well-known clients such as HighLevel as a client. He's built multiple 7- and 8-figure agencies, the majority of which on HighLevel. He knows HighLevel deeply and well. He's been in it since the beginning, and also just an overall amazing dad, amazing guy, a front row dad. And like I said, one of the probably most interesting people to hear from and talk with. And so, Qasim, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Matt Deseno. I'm going to just use all that for everything.
This is the new intro reel.
Yeah, that's right. Matt said nice things about me. I'm telling the world.
Qasim's an incredible connector as well, because some of the people that he's introed me to not only are people of high character and quality, but just like absolute killers. And so he's a well-connected individual. And you may not know this, but he is surprisingly tall, or I'm surprisingly small. But if you meet him in person, you'll be like, oh, Qasim's
I drank a lot of milk.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he believes in Montessori. Maybe we'll get into that. So, but let's go back. You don't have to go like the full origin story, but maybe let's talk about how you even entered into the HighLevel space. Usually it's like from an agency. How'd you get into the agency work? And then how did you get introed and connected into the HighLevel world?
Dude, we had a client actually mention it to us, and he put us on game right away. He's like, nobody knows about this yet, and it's going to be the biggest thing in marketing. And HighLevel, they had just made the pivot from whatever they were doing right before. You know, remember because before it was
small company. Yeah, they were just doing social media
for brick and mortar or something.
Yeah, and
so they had just decided like maybe agencies, and it was just absolute, complete, and total luck. And I was at one point, I was their top ranked affiliate. Very, very, very briefly, you blew past me, jackass, like right out of the gate. But I started bidding on SharpSpring's login page. There's a funny, dirty little trick that in YouTube you can bid on as an audience. You can bid on login URLs, which should not be allowed. Like it's vile. But I went straight after all SharpSpring users to the point to where the SharpSpring CEO reached out to Sean Clark and said, dude, why are you doing this to us?
Why are you poaching our business? Yeah.
I did. I ran one ad. I ran one ad to SharpSpring users saying, if you're using SharpSpring, you're leaving money on the table. And we've made $1 million in HighLevel commissions off of that. I haven't run ad in 2 years, and we're still, banking mid 5-figure commissions.
It was an easy in the early days. People, I mean, now maybe people know, maybe people don't, but like as a precursor to HighLevel, if you want to pick a segment who were like best fit, SharpSpring was it.
SharpSpring
right?
was great. Yeah.
They were like agencies who were using the platform to put their clients on it, and it was. I feel bad for those guys, but
are they even still around? Like they have to have just sold off for parts.
They had to have. Although I still see a few folks like migrating over. I don't know, somehow resistant over the years, but
dude, I just googled it. Their website's still live. I don't know how. I don't know who's paying the bills over there.
Sunk cost fallacy. They're in it. They don't want to move. People are there. Like I got,
Yeah, them and AOL, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, my in-laws have PacBell. That's still their primary email address.
Really?
It got acquired by Yahoo. It's like a whole thing. But yeah, so still using AOL, still using PacBell, still using SharpSpring. But okay, so you started over early days into that. Let's go on the Google side of it. How did you guys grow as an agency?
I didn't start growing until we niche down.
Mm.
Niche.
Focused in.
Yeah. We narrowed down our offering. I have a theory about this for agencies that care. And if you don't mind me just diving into a prepackaged framework, we tell all young entrepreneurs and small businesses to pick a niche. And it's a horrible, pernicious lie, because it's like saying drill for oil. And then they say where? And we're like, pick anywhere, right? Like, because when you pick a niche arbitrarily, there's no way to know it's going to be successful. So I call it the hourglass of niching. And the hourglass of niching, if you think about an hourglass starts broad, tapers, and then when you get to the center of the hourglass, that's the most efficient facet of the niche. And so start any business. Solutions 8 was a full funnel marketing agency. We did, SEO and PPC and content and video and graphic design and software. And it's a stupid business model. It's a horribly inefficient business model. And what it allows you to do is kiss frogs from a service perspective, industry perspective, geography perspective. And you start to see like, oh, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not. And then you begin to niche. And I niched all the way down into Google Ads. And interestingly, I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world, and I've never run a Google Ads campaign myself end to end. I wouldn't know how to. So which leads me to my second theory here for agencies, since I'm going to just jump right on soapboxes for you, which is entrepreneurship's not fulfillment. If you're an agency owner and you're doing the work, you're doing it wrong. You're never going to be able to work on your agency. You're always going to be in it. So we found another agency out of Fort Worth, Texas, and we just white labeled all their shit. I was just a sales organization. And we ended up having a little blow up that relationship. It worked really well for me for a long time, and then it met its end. And when I finally built an in-house facet for Google Ads, I had 60 clients in an industry where 30's the high watermark, So
Yeah.
Man, I'm all about white label, all about reselling other people's stuff. And I don't believe agency owners should be doing the work. As a rule, like you shouldn't actually, and I stole this from my business partner, Perry Belcher. I don't want to be on the org chart anymore. Like don't call me. My favorite answer to any question is, I don't know, ask Sally, ask Jeff, So I realize I probably said a lot of things that maybe run contrary to conventional wisdom, but that's how we grew. Niche down, start broad, taper in. And then once you've hit that apex, then you can branch back out. Because it's interesting, when you're on the top half of the hourglass and you're offering web design, let's say, well, that's just generic into everybody. But when I figured out I was good at Google Ads, then when I branched back out and offer web design, I'm now offering web design from the context of a Google Ads agency. So my websites are designed for people that want to run high-end Google Ads. And that's actually still niche specific, right?
Yeah.
And that's true for anything. If I go SEO, social, post-click, nurture, email, whatever, it's all from the paradigm of Google, which then still makes it hyper efficient, hyper profitable, super margin thick. So that's the framework. That's the hourglass of niching.
That's awesome. No, I've never heard it that way, but I think there's such maturity to it, from like a functional, how do you do this in a way where you're least likely to die? It's actually probably like the encouragement that I give folks now too, is I say the potential framework is just the more focus you have, the less energy it takes to get the same amount of impact. But to your point, when you're saying like drill for oil, I'll start off and just say like, just focus on proximity, either near you relationally or near you geographically, because I say like I pay more for farmers market eggs because somehow I believe the chickens that live near me are like superior. Like, it's just something born into us. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, I don't know why that is, but we just have a degree of know, like, and trust if they're neighbors. And so either one of those relationally, geographically, but it's so good that I think it's really helpful for a lot of folks to follow, is like start off and kiss the frogs, learn what you enjoy, what works, where you get success and results in. And then after you find a focused who, then you can kind of like earn the right to broaden out and maybe go deeper for the same audience in terms of the degree and types of problems you solve.
Dude, I love that you said earn the right, because that's what it is. Like you need to earn, you have to be good. And the who that you serve, this will get a little preachy maybe, but we'll go here. I really believe you have to love your client. I believe you need to love, I use that word now because I'm old and sappy. Like people get real repelled by that, but I think that's what it is. I think you have to really care about people on a deep level. Like you really need and want them to be successful, because I know people that hate their customers, and there's something about that relationship that can never be symbiotic, obviously, right? Like is an a priori prerequisite, but it's important to know when you're going off and finding niches, don't just look for the opportunity. Be like, oh, there's a great place in septic, and I think I could go really after plumbers. And it's like, well, would you love those people? And you might, yeah, my dad was a plumber, and I know the trials and the tribulations and what they go through, and I actually really have a heart for them, and I feel led to serve that community. Like it feels so Pollyanna to say, and yet all of the really successful businesses I've been a part of and I've seen are people who found a community they love to serve. Like Alex Ramosi has this great quote. He says that the person who loves to walk will go further than the person who loves the destination. So the destination is just the business, but loving to walk is loving these people. And if you find the people that you love, you just get the biggest kick out of like giving them, dude, you're like this, actually. You're like this with your communities. And I see it in all these businesses that you build, which it pisses me off how much you're able to do, bro. I have to be honest. Like I love to hate you and I just love you. But you give, and I think it's birthed from this whole, you actually really love this entrepreneurial agency owner, and you're like, oh, you know what else they need? You know what else they could do? You know what else they could use? And that doesn't come from just this sterile whiteboard, here's where we can make money. That comes from, I care about this avatar. And so, for whatever it's worth as a young entrepreneur, go figure out who really lights you up. A ballet teacher changed your life and really, really just helped direct where you were going. Go serve them. Go help ballet schools. And you might say like, oh, what a small, unscalable niche. Well, shit, I have an agency that only serves Montessori schools, which is, it doesn't exist as a niche. And it's one of the most profitable businesses I've ever owned because I love them. I love to serve them.
There's so much wisdom there. Is if like to that point, if for you it's fun, if for you it's life-giving,
right.
if for you it's an act of passion, the hardest part of entrepreneurship, which is endurance, the will to keep going, is going to actually be the easiest part of the business for you, because that's what it was born out of. Is like I could not imagine myself not continuing in this direction. So
dude, that's a writer downer. The hardest part of entrepreneurship is endurance. That is exactly right. That is yeah.
Well, and this is, you could derive some of these things by just focus on where doesn't it work. Like, and this is the flip side of the coin when people start to say, like, if I were to create advice around my recommendation for the antithesis of the result that I wanted. So if I wanted someone to not succeed at entrepreneurship, I would give up as soon as it got difficult. Like that, the guaranteed way to not succeed. And so okay, well, let's center back in. You've got so many areas, so much experience there, so many well-crafted, like really sustainable methodologies. I do want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now. So architects, which is fun because I saw you partnered up with one of our like primary coaches. So if people don't know, I don't know, I believe in coaching. This is, anyone who wants to be exceptional at anything, you find someone who's really great at it. And if you want to shortcut that time, you just say, can I pay you money to like do this? I do this with our team. I do this with our customers. I'm like, if you're in our ecosystem, like I want to help you be better and I want to help our team be better too, even as they're serving you. And so one of our coaches is Nuno, and you guys have partnered up on something. And I was like, oh, this is such just such a win and a slam dunk, because I'm like, usually you don't get access to this kind of thing. Usually it doesn't work. Usually people are like, I'm too busy for this. I wouldn't even do this. So talk about architects, and then also the weird spelling that you guys chose with. No judgment there.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to embarrass Nuno just briefly because he deserves it. Awesome dude. If you haven't encountered Nuno, I think he's one of the smartest people in the high level space. And so, Matt, just to pander and then also throw my friend under the bus, the way he talks about you, dude, it borders on reverence. Like when he's talking, he's like, oh, Matt Deseno, so for whatever it's worth, you've really made an impact on him. And I think he's made an impact on a lot of people in the same way. Like, you want to talk about a dude that like really delivers, knows what he's doing, and everybody wants him to do their work for him. So here's what we did. This is my sales pitch to Nuno. Nuno is not a scalable entity because human beings are not scalable entities, right? You can't clone them. Sadly, we'll try.
Yeah.
But you can get real close. So I own another business called Pareto Talent with a friend. And we staff badass executive assistants. I just graduated my last cohort, 4,000 applicants, yielded less than 40 EAs, top 1%, truly bloodthirsty killers. Wow. Here's why that's relevant. Because they're not just run-of-the-mill labor. So what I told Nuno was, dude, you're non-scalable. Everybody wants to do the work. You're stretched too thin. What if I could clone you? Or what if I could get close? Even if I could get 80%.
Yeah.
So we've already done it. We've peeled off 2 people from Pareto, 2 of our best, and Nuno trained them top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And now when people come to Nuno and say, hey, man, can you build my high-level instance? Nuno says, well, my guys can under my tutelage.
Yeah.
And so we had the solution that he needed, which was the labor, the people power, and he has the thought leadership. So it was a very symbiotic relationship. And architects felt right from a brand perspective because it's important to look at HighLevel as a collection of building materials and tools.
Mm-hmm.
To think of HighLevel as a finished product is a flawed paradigm.
No.
And I think the people that do that are they're actually getting annihilated. They're getting absolutely wiped out. And I want to see them go. They muddy the waters and they ruin all of our lives. And they provide no value. You know what I mean? They're like affiliates and resellers. And it's like, you're not doing anything other than getting in my way. Yeah. Go build something of real value to a real community and put in some extra time. Stop just being a salesperson. Forgive me for being too aggressive there.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to have branding that evoked kind of that thought that you're not just slapping a skin on this. We're actually building something relevant to a specific audience for a specific need with specific use cases. And that's what Architects is. So we build high-level instances, and then we'll also manage them on a recurring basis. And you get one of our bloodthirsty assassins who's running your high, and we're expensive. That's the first thing anybody says is when they look at their pricing, they're like, oh, you guys are more expensive than other people in the market. And my answer to that is, if you think we're expensive, go see what a cheap resource costs you. Because you get paid way less hourly, and it's going to take way longer, and they're going to break a bunch of shit, and you're going to have to be coming back to them. And so yes and no. I actually think we're the most efficient people in the done-for-you high-level space.
Let me give you this quick story. This is a personal active wound right now for me.
Oh,
so we've been building our dream property for over a year. And genuinely, we didn't even go with the cheapest provider. That's not what we thought. But we did. My wife, when she shops stuff, she's a value shopper. Like that's what she's looking for, and like she falls into that prey of like, it's not a bad thing, but it's like, give me small, medium, large. I'm gonna choose medium, right? Because it feels like I'm gonna be anchored to whatever the price is there. And I'm not. It's gonna feel like I'm thrown on the bus. I'm not. I trust her a lot, but I'm like, I own that piece of relationship. So we just got through, it's been a year of one general contractor, and come to find out, like a year into it, I think it was a little bit of mismanagement on his part, maybe a lot of bit of mismanagement. But we had to fire him and just count most things as like a sunk cost.
Oh no.
So we had like, and to be fair, this was like a ground up, there were some existing structures that got gutted through, but like things like the bathroom started like to studs. And then you do things like you waterproof them, and then you put the tile on, and like all the things. And it was like, what ended up happening is you started kind of like, we got to like 90% of the project at least paid for. 90% of the project paid for. And there were certain things that started stacking up, and he would always be super easygoing and be like, oh yeah, we'll fix that. There was a lot of like, oh yeah, we'll fix that. I think it got to the end and he realized there's no way like I can afford to fix all of this. And so then he just started ghosting us. And this was like we're going to move in by July 4th. And then it's like, we're going to move in by September. And then this is going to be like, we're going to move in before the baby comes. And, you know, it was like, there was apparently there's green board. You don't put that behind the tile when you're waterproofing. Like there was drywall behind the tile, and we started from studs. It was like a start from scratch. There was not like and there was lots of things where they like built the wall, and now the person's coming in and installing the cabinet, and they're like, oh, we can't put the cabinet square because the wall is crooked. And we're like, you guys built the wall. That might be true that the wall is crooked, but you can't tell that to me as like a reason why we have to settle for this weird looking gap between the cabinet and the wall. You know, you're like, anywho, when you talk about the cost of like unvetted talent or poor systems, that's really what it comes down to. Because truly, at the end of the day, I think so we've now swapped. We have a new general contractor in there, and I just had to eat it because I'm just, there's a part of it. What
do you do? Do you actually raise it down back to studs?
Literally back to studs.
Oh man, that's devastating.
Literally back to studs. I'm telling you, like, I just had to sit here and be like, this is, we like our rough estimation of waste. I mean, there were certain things too, this is painful. My wife picked out like bespoke tiles, handcrafted tiles in the shower, right?
And then they just go with a sledgehammer and tear them apart.
Oh yeah, you're like, there's $5,000 in tiles that just got like destroyed. And on the front end, some people are like, that was wasteful. Why'd you get these tiles? She was picking out her dream. I'm like, I'm happy. This is truly, you work hard so that you can like enjoy some things. And when she's designing the dream guest bathroom and she wanted $5,000 in hand whittled tiles, I don't know what they are, I was like, this sounds great. With like
by nuns from Calcutta woven with the horse's hair.
Yes, I don't know, whatever it is. And to be fair, like not every decision went that way, but there were certain things that were that way. She felt like just
it's
loved,
where you live. It's your home. It's important.
Well, and she loved the story behind it. It might have been that, like, for every tile that we buy, they donate, a pair of shoes to someone else. I don't know exactly what it was that justified the cost. All the tile costs gone. I'll just say, in just a recent story of pain, my goodness, the cost of choosing the low cost option is so hard to quantify. I would be alarmed. Or you just got to know, if you're signing up and you want to be the manager and you want to be like, you need to show up there every single day. And you're like, I want to own the headache, because all these things, they require that kind of infrastructure. But the nice thing, and I'll say this, just kudos to like you and Nuno, what you built and the kind of organizations I know you run and the kind of people that you are. Like, what are you paying for? Like you said, it's assassin level. This is like top 0.01%. That's on the doer side of it. And then in terms of systems creation, this is led by folks who know how to create frameworks of predictable success. That can sound fluffy, but it makes all the difference between the amount of rework, the difference between like your vision and reality, the difference between like, having like a blueprint or a recipe on Pinterest and like, look at what I did. Like, it's the cupcakes. Like, here's my, cupcake, Pinterest version. You're like, here's what it looks like on my side, because I didn't know that you were, supposed to let the dough cool before you put on the icing. It just all melts around it. And so, my goodness, it just hit, and I just had to share it, that I'm actively in that pain of like, I probably burned, our rough estimation is about $90,000 that we're trashing of just like waste, which like tiles were purchased.
Devastating, man. I'm so
and they're
sorry.
thrown away. We had the island. They didn't run water to it. They put it on the floor. We're at like the last 10% where it's like, oh, we put the countertops on and the sinks in, and it comes to find out you're like, the trenching, when there was a trench there, they didn't put hot and cold water in. But they knew this is where.
Why do you think we have sinks if there's not one?
Oh, yeah. And so like that, we're ripping up the flooring, and the flooring was a similar thing of like the wood from the forest of. It's like weird to say, we're in the area, like we're, close by. So we use the same wood flooring store as like the Kardashians. And it's like, this is the.
Oh, that's cool. We got Kim K's Redwood.
That's exactly right. It's I don't remember who it was, but it was like, oh, this is, and I'm like, are you kidding me? But like, fine, it's beautiful. I have no doubt on it. Like, I'm just like, our kids are going to dent it and run into the walls anyways. Like, I'm like, IKEA is good enough for me, but I enjoy it. I benefit from it, no doubt. I love amenities. Anywho, think of that. Like, we're doing that and just ripping it up, throw it in the trash. And the flooring company's like, oh man, I feel so bad for you. Here's the invoice for the next batch of flooring.
Here's the next round.
There's no it's not their fault that we bought materials that, so anywho, all to say, oh man. Yes. If you're, and it's fine. I think you guys are a great solution for folks that are, understand the cost of doing it the cheap way. And,
well, dude, for folks that want to, I think you really hit on something, Matt. It's time or money. Yeah. For people that need to, you don't need to hire us to be good at HighLevel. You truly do not. We put in the time though. Like, if you want to be there every single day watching the contractors or the subcontractors and figuring it out, and I actually think for the people listening that are still entry level, I was there, you were there. There's a huge benefit to that. You learn, because you can't just learn systems thinking without doing it, right? It takes time out on the field. So I don't want to discourage anybody from trying it themselves. Like, you're going to go and you're going to do exactly. You know what? Here's the thing. The next house you build, right, is.
I'm going to be so knowledgeable.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Well, and I'm still like, here's the hack, all tiers there. It's still who, not how. So like I'm knowledgeable in how to choose the better who.
Right. Well, that's what I want to be knowledgeable on. It should go without saying on every podcast I do that I don't believe in murder. And if we were to make two exceptions, it would be contractors and attorneys. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I've heard so many stories like that. I've had so many stories like that myself to where I'm like, gosh, you guys are just a special group of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
not that they should be murdered like a priori, but it should just be on the table at a certain point. Like in the agreement, as I should be allowed to at least shoot at you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the funny thing though, there too, is this is where it's such a vulnerable space to translate someone's vision into a reality, no matter what it is. And so there's high stakes there. And if you don't feel like the person is process driven and process strong, and some foundational stuff, I mean, I'll tell you, like day and night, this crew versus the last GC, their processes every single day they leave and the place is clean. Which would be like, like such a small thing, right?
Wouldn't even think of it, but now that you say it, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
And it feels different. It feels like a different caliber. And you just imagine if you looked at someone's like workstation and they're like, I don't know, and just imagine, I don't know, your guys' process equivalent there. If you're like, oh, at the end of the day, the change log is always updated. And you're like, oh, every other contractor I've ever worked with, they just like let it be messy. And it's just like ever growing chaos. And I somehow am confident that they're not going to like lose parts or like details aren't going to get missed. And you're like, oh, wow, those small things make such a difference. And so I don't want people, this is not meant to be an infomercial, but so in case, I'm stoked for what they're doing. That's awesome. Let's pull something out of that. If someone's in HighLevel and they're looking for like a build out and they're in this launching phase, actually, let's go this way. Cause I get folks who are like migrating and they're like, I've got clients, I'm already here. In your mind, why HighLevel versus like keep it there? What are the biggest points of leverage that you guys see or you've experienced? You've already run agencies inside of HighLevel in terms of like I'm coming from Sharp Spring and like, why should I even switch?
From the agency paradigm specifically or from the user perspective?
I guess we go either way because you guys are serving now. This is the interesting thing too. We get folks who are like, they're moving into HighLevel and they're not doing it with an agency. Right?
Yeah.
You get
I think we're going to see more and more of that. I don't think agencies are going to be the ubiquitous truth in HighLevel any longer. Here's a quick story from an old guy. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember when Joomla was actually a competitor to WordPress. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I guess I'm old enough too. Then,
yeah. So like WordPress, it was like the question, was it WordPress, Joomla? And there was, Drupal and Plone and whatever. And here's the thing that's really interesting is Joomla was actually the better product. Joomla had a stronger foundation. It was far more secure. WordPress was the easiest thing to hack in the whole wide world. Joomla was on almost every level of analysis. Joomla was better, but it wasn't as easy to use, and it lost the game of social integration. The same is true, to make maybe a more accessible analogy, VHS and Beta. Beta was a better technology, clearer picture, easier to use. They didn't fall apart. VHS won the game of social integration. More people started using VHS. Now, if you have a Joomla website, or even after the tipping point, let's say, you're at a massive disadvantage. No plugins were being coded for you. Nobody coded for Joomla. If you ran into an issue, it was hard to find a vendor. So there comes a point in technology specifically where you actually don't have a choice at all, because social integration is critical to and I don't want to use the term open source because HighLevel is not open source. What will we use? We'll say the brain trust that is the amalgamation of all new endeavors. If you just want to keep up, you have to be on the tech stack that allows for new features to be plugged in quickly and easily. And if you're not, then you either wait for them to develop it or you develop themselves. So if you'd asked me this question 6 months ago, I'd have a way different answer. My answer right now about HighLevel is you have no choice. You're actually stupid if you're not on it. Forgive me for saying that, because it's the runaway train that everybody's on. And if you don't move over to it, you are going to be every other feature, tool, technology, functionality, AI, bot, process, this, that, whatever, you're not going to be able to use to the same degree or same capacity, because everybody's now coding for HighLevel. Here's what's really interesting. HighLevel's not the best anything, not the best website builder, not the best funnel builder, not the best CRM, not the best automation platform. It's not the best anything. but it's the best everything.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like it's the Pareto distribution, dude. It has the 20% of the features that do 80% of the work, and they actually ship and they build. And here's the other thing too that I hope you don't mind me saying. Again, being old enough, I'm old enough to remember Infusionsoft. I'm old enough to remember being a HubSpot partner. And dude, I've been a part. I was in. What have I been? I've been a partner in HubSpot, SharpSpring, Acton, Infusionsoft. Optify. It was remember Optify, they went out of business, midnight move out. Here's what's interesting about all those organizations is every single one of them treated the agencies like prey animals. They treated us like we weren't important to the process. They squeezed down commissions, they changed rules, they cut off features, they made weird ascension paths. HighLevel has been, to date, completely open and transparent and communicative. Sean Clark, who's the most engaged CEO I've ever met in my life,
Yeah.
is to this day in the Facebook group forums responding to individual support tickets. So you have two things. One, you need to trust the leadership from any tech stack that you commit your whole business to. And if you're on HighLevel, dude, that's a lot to be on, right?
Yeah.
And maybe more importantly, you have to be where the social integration is if you want to be able to move fast, especially at a time where speed, maybe, Matt, is more important than any other factor or level of analysis, better than efficiency, quality. You need to move fast. These AI tools that are coming out and the ability they provide organizations to execute on really massive goals. I mean, man, they're earth moving. You know, they're so massive in their impact. And if you don't have a tech stack that allows you to absorb that quickly and easily and be very nimble, what are you going to do? Because your competitor does. You're going to get left behind. So to keep up, you have to meet the minimum. HighLevel's the minimum. I'm not going to tell you it's better. HubSpot, dude, I was a HubSpot certified partner for a long time. I know HubSpot really well. HubSpot's a hyper elegant solution. It's beautiful. It's easy to play with.
Oh, yeah.
It's not buggy, never breaks. They've got an amazing support staff. It's $1 billion. It's way too expensive. They're always trying to squeeze you for more money. They never ship new features. It took them 18 months to add a separate thank you page to forms, which is something I got pushed through. And dude, I had to go through like 6 rounds of interviews to explain to them why they needed that for conversion tracking.
Yeah.
And it takes forever for them to integrate with shit. So I hate to be so petulant when I say this, but why should we use HighLevel? You know what? Don't. See what happens.
Yeah.
See what, you know what I mean? Like you have to. That's the answer. You absolutely, positively, no matter what. You don't have to hire me to do it. You don't have to buy it through Matt Deseno, right? Yeah. You should. And no matter what, you're going to need this. Like this has to be the infrastructure that you're on. Yep. It's like being in the United States and saying, well, why do I need to speak English? Mm-hmm. Sorry, you have to.
Yeah.
You know, call me racist, call me classist, call me whatever. It's just like, you want a job? You have to be able to communicate with the people who are paying money. HighLevel is that. It's the critical prerequisite. So was that too aggressive, dude? Add it out as much of that as you want to.
No, I love it. I think that's great. So there's, heavy degrees of passion here. And I think this is for folks, because we do get folks, it's still surprising, but you'd be like, there are folks who are Brent, like they maybe heard a rumbling of it, but they've been head down doing it. Like other stuff. And if this is the first time you're hearing about it and you're like, wow, this guy's passionate, like it has been, it's hard to fully understand it until you get into it. But I think key points that Qasim brings up here, and it's helpful to understand this cascades down. So I'd say this is true of architects and true of our company. Like following the example of HighLevel is hyper attention to the customer. Like it is so responsive and customer driven. Like people say, like it's either product-led marketing or like customer-driven innovation. HighLevel embodies that. And I think as a consequence of us needing to survive and exist in this ecosystem, we just follow their example.
Yeah.
Fast feedback loops, fast innovation. And never has anyone said like, it just takes them so long to come out with new stuff. They're literally releasing new stuff.
I'm overwhelmed every day.
That's right. That's right. And so that's the other side of the token then is why do folks like, architects or HL, why do these companies exist? Because it is a full-time job to fully understand the depth of it. So it's like if you think HighLevel's Home Depot, but like imagine if Home Depot added like 3 new aisles of products every single week,
dude, every day.
You're like
never ending.
This is a pretty big, building store. But even if you only visit it once a month, they're like, what is going on here? You guys have a whole new, possibilities of ways we could build and cool ways that we can make it a reality. And And I think those are, and then to your point, the social integration for folks that care deeply about leading the market on that piece of it. Because we realize that money loves speed. At the end of the day, like if hopefully the lifeblood of your business is net free cash flow. Like that is it. If you don't have cash, it's a hobby. Understanding that when you anchor yourself to an ecosystem that goes this fast, what is the inevitable consequence? You make more money. Right. And so what the business needs is make more money. What plays very well into that and almost makes it difficult to do is speed. And when you put yourself in an ecosystem like HighLevel, you will make more money accidentally, either by like functionally a reduction in cost is net free cash flow. How many things we've been able to cancel and eliminate because HighLevel does the important 20%. You're like, oh, I don't need this subscription. So we've probably like paid for HighLevel 10 times over their costs in just reduction of costs of alternatives. And then the efficiencies that go into it, like the benefits that we start to experience where your marketing becomes better, your automation becomes better, your fulfillment becomes better, like all these auxiliary benefits of being in a just fast moving ecosystem where you're able to reduce costs and increase efficiencies. And it motivates super talented partners to like come into the space, because if it wasn't moving fast, wasn't a growing space that was worthwhile, talented folks like your team would be like, oh, we'll go to other provider XYZ. And so it's also a very robust secondary market ecosystem there, which is like nice that even these things exist, because in the early days it didn't.
Yeah. Well, it's such a good point too about the brain drain. Like HighLevel's draining every other application, all the service providers, all the freelancers, all the contractors, all the software developers, like they're all migrating over into HighLevel. And so if you're on some of these other platforms, I feel sorry for you, because I mean, the support system's just not going to be there.
No, there's no way. So, Qasim, this was great. I think this is, if folks want to, well, I like to ask two questions. So one, you're an ever learner always. Do you have a resource that fills you up? This could be a podcast. This could be a book. This could be, I mean, it's usually one of those two things. It's something like that you either come back to, or you'd be like, oh man, this fills me up. I think people are always intrigued to know like what fills you up as a person, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's clearly growth minded.
It's Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
I call my digital dad. I'm obsessed with him.
That's awesome.
And I know I just offended half the audience, but I just don't care. Like, I think he's our generation's Socrates. And I love everything that he says. And I feel like he's not just made me more money, he's made me more integrous, you know? Like and I don't mean that in the way that we use the word integrity from a moral perspective. I mean it in the way we use it from an architectural perspective. Like I feel more
solid.
Solid. Like I can actually stand up against the storm. So I'm a great big JP fan.
That's awesome. And if someone wants to stay connected, what's the best way to find you, follow you, reach out to you?
Qasim.me, KASIM.me. All my links, all my socials, all my everything's right there. I'm writing a book on hiring right now that your audience can have for absolute free. That'll be on that link. I've got a hiring framework, dude, that I think is the best in the world. And I want to give it away because my passion in life right now is helping people in emerging nations see opportunities they wouldn't see otherwise. So if I can incentivize entrepreneurs to hire more people in emerging markets, like that would just tickle me pink. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And thanks for having me on, dude. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, this is great. So thanks for being here. And this is, I mean, honestly, someday we're going to do a sit down in person, like a 2-hour podcast, because there's so many things we could get into. I'm going to encourage you.
Don't make promises you can't keep, bro.
No. So for real, because go listen to anything else that Qasim's put out there. Such a deep thinker and just a wealth of knowledge and information and challenging thought, which is, I think, is super critical. I don't even know if we got in the depth of that, but hopefully you guys got a taste. Check out Qasim.me, look out for the book. And Qasim, thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks, everybody.
If you liked what we were talking about on the show, head on over to agencylaunch.com. We've made it easy, put together all the resources from everyone who's been on the show, put it in one place, and you can get it for free, no opt-in required. And so once again, all those resources to help you grow, launch, and scale your agency. You can find that all at agencylaunch.com.